Wordless 33. Pecuniary. Pertaining to money. Seldom earning enough to cover their expenses, folk dance teachers work because they love dancing, not because they expect any pecuniary reward. Pedagogy. Teaching, art of education. Though Maria Montessori gained fame for her innovations in pedagogy, it took years before her teaching techniques were common practice in American schools. Pedant. Scholars who overemphasizes book learning or technicalities. Her insistence that the book be memorized marked the teacher as a pedant rather than a scholar. Pedantic. Showing off learning, bookish. Leavening his decisions with humorous, down-to-earth anecdotes, Judge Walker was not at all the pedantic legal scholar. Pedant, pedantry. Pedestrian. Ordinary, unimaginative. Unintentionally boring, he wrote page after page of pedestrian prose. Pediatrician. Expert in children's diseases. The family doctor advised the parents to consult a pediatrician about their child's ailment. Fearless. Having no equal, incomparable. The reigning operatic tenor of his generation, to his admirers Luciano Pavarotti was peerless, no one could compare with him. Pejorative. Negative in connotation, having a belittling effect. Instead of criticizing Clinton's policies, the Republicans made pejorative remarks about his character. Pellucid. Transparent, limpid, easy to understand. After reading these stodgy philosophers, I find Bertrand Russell's pellucid style very enjoyable. Penchant. Strong inclination, liking. Dave has a penchant for taking risks. One semester he went steady with 3 girls, 2 of whom were stars on the school karate team. Pendant. Ornament, hanging from a necklace, etc. The grateful team presented the coach with a silver chain and pendant engraved with the school's motto. Penitent. Repentant. When he realized the enormity of his crime, he became remorseful and penitent, also. Pensive. Dreamily thoughtful, thoughtful with a hint of sadness, contemplative. The pensive lover gazed at the portrait of his beloved and deeply sighed. Penury. Severe poverty, stinginess. When his pension fund failed, George feared he would end his days in penury. He became such a penny pincher that he turned into a close-fisted, penurious miser. Perceptive. Insightful, aware, wise. Although Maud was a generally perceptive critic, she had her blind spots. She could never see flaws in the work of her friends. Percussion. Striking one object against another sharply. The drum is a percussion instrument. Perdition. Damnation, complete ruin. Praying for salvation, young Stephen Dedalus feared he was damned to eternal perdition. Peregrination. Journey. Annie Main was a world traveler whose peregrinations took her from Diadouana to Timbuktu. Peremptory. Demanding and leaving no choice. From Jack's peremptory knock on the door, Jill could tell he would not give up until she let him in. Perennial. Something that is continuing or recurrent. These plants are hardy perennials and will bloom for many years. Perfidious. Treacherous, disloyal. When Caesar realized that Brutus had betrayed him, he reproached his perfidious friend. Perforate. Pierce, put a hole through. Before you can open the aspirin bottle, you must first perforate the plastic safety seal that covers the cap. Perfunctory. Superficial, not thorough, lacking interest, care, or enthusiasm. The auditor's perfunctory inspection of the books overlooked many errors. Giving the tabletop only a perfunctory swipe with her dustcloth, Betty promised herself she'd clean it more thoroughly tomorrow. Perimeter. Outer boundary. To find the perimeter of any quadrilateral, we add the lengths of the four sides. Peripheral. Marginal, outer. We lived, not in central London, but in one of those peripheral suburbs that spring up on the outskirts of a great city. Periphery. Edge, especially of a round surface. He sensed that there was something just beyond the periphery of his vision. Perjury. False testimony while under oath. Rather than lie under oath and perhaps be indicted for perjury, the witness chose to take the Fifth Amendment, refusing to answer any questions on the grounds that he might incriminate himself. Permeable. Penetrable, porous, allowing liquids or gas to pass through. If your jogging clothes weren't made out of permeable fabric, you'd drown in your own perspiration, figuratively speaking. Permeate. Pass through, spread. The odor of frying onions permeated the air. Pernicious. Very destructive. Crack cocaine has had a pernicious effect on urban society. It has destroyed families, turned children into drug dealers, and increased the spread of violent crimes. Perpetrate. Commit an offense. Only an insane person could perpetrate such a horrible crime. Perpetual. Everlasting. Ponce de Leon hoped to find the legendary fountain of perpetual youth. Perpetuate. Make something last, preserve from extinction. Some critics attack the adventures of Huckleberry Finn because they believe Twain's book perpetuates a false image of blacks in this country. Perquisite. Any gain above stipulated salary. The perquisites attached to this job make it even more attractive than the salary indicates. Persona. Public personality or facade. Offstage the comedian was a sullen, irritable grumbler, a far cry from his ever-cheerful adopted stage persona. Personable. Attractive. The man I am seeking to fill this position must be personable since he will be representing us before the public. Perspicacious. Having insight, penetrating, astute. The brilliant lawyer was known for his perspicacious deductions. Pert. Impertinent, forward. I think your pert and impudent remarks call for an apology. Pertinacious. Stubborn, persistent. He is bound to succeed because his pertinacious nature will not permit him to quit. Pertinent. To the point, relevant. Virginia Woolf's words on women's rights are as pertinent today as they were when she wrote them nearly a century ago. Perturb. Disturb greatly. The thought that electricity might be leaking out of the empty light bulb sockets perturbed my aunt so much that at night she crept about the house screwing fresh bulbs in the vacant spots. Peruse. Read with care. After the conflagration that burned down her house, Joan closely perused her home insurance policy to discover exactly what benefits her coverage provided her. Pervasive. Pervading, spread throughout every part. Despite airing them for several hours, Martha could not rid her clothes of the pervasive odor of mothballs that clung to them. Perverse. Stubbornly wrong-headed, wicked and perverted. When Jack was in a perverse mood, he would do the opposite of whatever Jill asked him. When Hannibal Lecter was in a perverse mood, he ate the flesh of his victims. Jack acted out of perversity. Hannibal's act proved his perversion. Pessimism. Belief that life is basically bad or evil, gloominess. Considering how well you have done in the course so far, you have no real reason for such pessimism about your final grade. Petrify. Turn to stone. His sudden and unexpected appearance seemed to petrify her. Petty. Trivial, unimportant, very small. She had no major complaints to make about his work, only a few petty quibbles that were almost too minor to state. Petulant. Touchy, peevish. If you'd had hardly any sleep for 3 nights and people kept phoning and waking you up, you'd sound pretty petulant, too. Phenomena. Observable facts, subjects of scientific investigation. We kept careful records of the phenomena we noted in the course of these experiments. Philanderer. Faithless lover, flirt. Swearing he had never so much as looked at another woman, Ralph assured Alice he was no philanderer.